It's 5:30 and I am calling us to order, and we'll start with the pledge. All rise, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Alrighty, and Ms. Garcia, if you would have roll call for us, please.
Dr. Guy Archambault.
Yes.
Ms. Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Mr. Walter Jaramillo.
Yes.
Mr. Ron Ortiz.
Here.
Ms. Francie Ann Lee.
Present. We do indeed have a quorum. Adoption, I'll move to adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented? If so, what? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Francie Lee and seconded by Walter Jaramillo to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Ms. Garcia, please.
Dr. Guy Archambault.
Here.
Emily Hunt Daly.
And I answer because I'm here, or you're asking me if I want to approve the agenda?
Approve the agenda.
Approve the agenda.
No.
Walter Jaramillo.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Francis Lee.
Aye, motion carries. Citizens to address the board. Mrs. Garcia, are there any citizens to address the board?
Yes.
The next item is citizens to address the board. And were there, pardon me, let me start that again. Ms. Garcia, were there any requests for public comment submitted to you by the posted deadline of 4 p.m. today?
Yes, our first one is Lieutenant Governor Wendell Chino with the Pueblo of Acoma. And second, we have Marcia Lino with the Acoma Department of Education.
Thank you. Were there any requests for public comments submitted to you after the posted deadline?
No.
Thank you. Before we move into public comment, I would like to remind our audience of the board's procedures for handling public comment, which are found in Board Policy B-2150-BEDH and on the public input form referenced in the policy. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. However, as board president, I have authority to further restrict or waive these limits. At this time, I will ask that Don Vernoy of Walsh and Gallegos, acting as board legal counsel, take on the role of facilitator for the citizens to address the board section of the meeting. Ms. Vernoy.
Given the number of speakers today, the comment period will remain at 5 minutes. Pursuant to Board Policy B-2150, the Board of Education welcomes public comment during the public comment section of the board meeting. Comments are limited to the subject matter open for public comment as listed on the agenda for the meeting. Regarding the action item on the agenda, the board received a complaint against a board member, and the purpose of this meeting is for the board to determine how to proceed to address the complaint. This action item is only to decide the process and not to discuss the specific claims or the complainant. Under board policy, individuals wishing to make public comments shall complete a public comment form and submit it to the board president prior to this portion of the meeting, which everybody did. If anyone wishes to make a public comment but did not submit their request on time, or if the topic of the comment is outside of the agenda items for today, you are invited to return to a future meeting when the topic is on the agenda. If you did submit your public comment form, please wait until Madam President recognizes you to speak. Then please state your name, your address, and identify the general topic of your remarks. You are reminded that pursuant to the policy, your public comments must be limited to what is on today's agenda. As board president, President Lee has the authority to interrupt or stop your comment if it does not pertain to the subject matter of today's agenda. President Lee also asks you to refrain from profanity, obscenity, or other breaches of public respect, and refrain from irrelevant, cumulative, or repetitive remarks, and that's just for the board policy. Any person making comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments. The board neither adopts nor assumes responsibility for any comments made by individuals during the public comment section of the board meeting. So at this time, Madam President, will you please call the first speaker to the podium?
Yes. The first person that submitted a request is First Lieutenant Governor Wendell Chino, please. Welcome, Mr. Chino.
Wazi, Good evening, Superintendent Weiner, Board President Lee, board members, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Wendell Chino, and I am the First Lieutenant Governor for the Pueblo of Acoma. I am here to speak on behalf of our Native children, or should I say, on behalf of all children. Because as tribal leaders, we do not see color or race. We pray for everyone. However white the sky, the elders say, that is who we pray for. So with that, I want to say that as Native Americans, we live in two worlds. And it seems we are always trying to make our voice be heard. The wants and needs for our people, our children. I am here in support of Dr. Guy Archambault with his long-standing efforts as a board member to advocate for our Acoma children and all children in need. We are not satisfied with the long-standing achievement gap and want better results. We want more effective communication and opportunities to share our ideas and recommendations. The school board must take the lead in dealing with these problems by making sure that the district administration consults with the Pueblo of Acoma more effectively. Dr. Archambault speaks strongly about these things in board meetings as we want accountability. Sometimes it might seem like we are direct or have a strong tone, but sometimes that is what we need to get our points across. He has tried to help improve the school board's leadership and direction when he was a board president. Yes, he may ask a lot of questions and may make demands for more information. He is only looking out for results, and we expect him to continue in these efforts. Because he attends the tribal meetings that we invite him to, he contributes his ideas and listens to our concerns. We would expect him to continue serving our Acoma students and all Native students of the district. He is accountable to tribal administration, our community of parents, and tribal council. So he has to search for those answers from the school board, the administration, or specific departments. I do not know why an employee complaint was brought forward, as he is just doing what we ask of him. If an employee got their feelings hurt, well, maybe they also need to be accountable as well. With that, we need Dr. Guy Archambault to continue to be our strong voice on the Grant Cebolla County School Board. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, First Lieutenant Wendell-Chino. Appreciate your time in addressing us. And the next person that submitted a request is Marcia Lino.
Good evening, Superintendent Whitener, school board members and guests. My name is Marcia Lino, Executive Director for the Pueblo of Acoma's Department of Education. During my tenure with Acoma, I look forward to working with the Grant Cebolla County Public Schools once again to ensure our children receive the highest quality education possible. I'm going to address you as the board, and I believe tonight's meeting is in regard to one of your own board members. Since the last several superintendents, there have been many challenges for our students within Grant Cebolla County Schools. And as of today, there is much work to be done to restore trust and confidence in your leadership and administration. As leaders in capacities such as the school board or my position, we have a duty to protect and serve our children, families, and communities. We are concerned that GCCS has not appropriately assessed and acted upon any real or perceived conflicts regarding student, parent, staff concerns, and your obligations as a school board for the Grant Cebolla County Public Schools to discharge your public duties fully and faithfully to address these deficiencies. It is also adequate to say that no superintendent can effectively lead without the support of school board members entrusted with overseeing our school boards. The most important job of any school board is to appoint a superintendent that can put students first and on the path to success. So this is the reason why I support Dr. Archambault. Like Lieutenant Governor Chino stated, that he has an obligation to support those individuals that put him in that capacity. And so we hope that he continues to enforce what you, as all board members, should be doing. So under the direction of the current and previous superintendents, we believe the administration has failed to be transparent and openly communicate with us, students and their parents, the public, and even staff. We are concerned Grant Cebolla County Schools has removed staff without reason, continues to fail and acknowledge cultural differences, provide sufficient support to all students, lack accountability for safety and well-being of all, openly address concerns from students and parents regarding inappropriate behaviors of your own staff, etc. Yet you dare to bring one of your own in front of the public and fail to address the many community concerns of other GCCS staff in your schools. You, the board, and every superintendent need to be held accountable for your own actions and role model positive behaviors. We do not believe GCCS has shown us they can lead our district in a way that best serves the cultural, spiritual, emotional, and educational needs of our children, but we feel that Dr. Archambault is doing a great job in fulfilling those responsibilities, and that's where I need you all as board to support us. We cannot risk our children's academic future in the hope that things will get better by adhering to the status quo. Perhaps most significantly, the district's relationship with the students, parents, families, and communities entrusted with protecting children from bullying and insufficient supportive services has and continues to deteriorate over time. For this reason, among others, we believe that the district needs to change and understand the implications of the Yazzie versus State of New Mexico lawsuit. Education is an important foundation for sufficiency and quality of life for our people. The Yazzie lawsuit has provided the opportunity for school districts to make changes and afford an equitable education for all Native students. Centuries ago, the United States signed a treaty with Native American tribes that in exchange for our lands, the governor would fully operate and fund schools for our Native students in perpetuity. Since funding has been appropriated in local education agencies, the inequity of services still exists. So again, with Dr. Archambault's representation for our Native students within his school district, we admire his ambition. And yes, at times, he can be very vocal, but who isn't? Since the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, several stakeholders have developed the tribal remedy framework to address many of the deficiencies stated in the lawsuit. The recommendations have provided options for all LEAs to consider as they contemplate policies to help close many of the gaps, and one group being an equity council that Grant Siegel County Schools still has failed to provide. As a reminder, each Native students come from diverse Native American communities which are unique by their own culture, language, heritage. As our Native students seek high-quality educational opportunities, it is time to promote Indigenous identities in the classroom that reflect their language and culture through culturally based curriculums to help close those achievement gaps. So my question to you as the board, how is GCCS going to be accountable in building and rebuilding the necessary structures and policies, teaching approaches, relationships, the overall context and educational environment for our Native students to find the academic success they deserve? And that's exactly what Mr. Archambault has been doing with our Native American communities. Today, I still have not seen skills, talents, and experience that the public have entrusted and deeply qualified to lead our district students to academic success. We lack trust and have no confidence GCCS will continue to perform the job consistently with the mission and goals set forth for the community school district.
Ms. Lino, your time is now over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lino, for addressing the board this evening. Next on the agenda is possible action regarding next steps for handling of employee complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault. Regarding this action item, the board received a complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault, and the purpose of this meeting is for the board to determine how to proceed to address this complaint. Under NMSA 1978, Section 22-5-4K, I quote, "The board has a duty to adopt rules pertaining to the administration of all powers or duties of the local school board," end quote. This action item is only to decide the process and not to discuss the specific claims or the complainant. As to the process, I recommend that the board authorize our legal counsel to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the substance of the complaint. That investigator would interview Dr. Archambault, the complainant, and any other necessary witnesses and review all relevant documents and prepare a written report with findings. Once the investigation is complete, the board will be provided with a copy of the report so that the board can reach conclusions based on the findings and take whatever action may be appropriate within its authority based on those conclusions. I would like to make a motion to authorize legal counsel to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault and prepare a report with findings to the board.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? So, when hiring this investigator, do we have to vote for her to proceed to hire this investigator? I mean, I think it would be proper that we vote as a board to,
That's what making the motion would be. It would be,
because you're,
and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Vernoy.
There would need, in order for that to happen, there would need to be a motion.
okay,
For it to happen, there would need to be a second. Any discussion that would take place, someone would call the question and there would be a vote. And only if there was a majority of vote of all board members would that motion, just like any other motion, pass. If it fails, I imagine that there would be a solicitation by President Lee for a different motion as to how to proceed.
okay. And I should have let you finish.
That's
I'm sorry.
quite all right. It is much better to get questions asked and answered so we know how to proceed. So at this time,
Madam President, I do have another clarification.
Before there are more questions, there has been, President Lee has asked
For a motion.
for a motion. If there is a motion and a second, then questions and discussion can proceed.
Will be after. So
Clarify a bit further, Madam President, you did actually make.
I did make the motion. I said I would like to make a motion to authorize legal counsel to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault and prepare a report with findings to the board. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by President Lee to authorize legal counsel to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault and prepare a report with findings to the board. And seconded by Walter Jaramillo. Now, is there any discussion? So-
I have a question. Without bringing up the already existing complaint, my question is that the original complaint was already processed without without going through the superintendent, therefore breaking the chain of command. So in essence.
With all due respect, Board Member Hunt Daly, the motion on the floor is only about the process by which the board should move forward to deal with the present complaint. And so discussion must be limited to that agenda item.
My discussion is that we shouldn't even hear the complaint because it broke the chain of command.
Then you can respond or vote accordingly to the motion that's on the floor if you do not believe that the motion is appropriate.
Could I follow up? Mike?
Sir,
Thank you.
Dr. Archambault.
The motion was made and seconded, and I understood that. That this is an opportunity to speak to the motion, either for or against. And as I am the person who is the subject of the complaint, I believe it is in my own interest to make a statement to tell you how I feel about it. And I can do that because it is within my right as a board member to do so. This is an open session. And while it is discussing me, I have the right to participate in the vote and also to do my statement at this time. So if you don't mind, I'd like to make my statement. I'll try to be brief. And the complaint, obviously I've read the complaint. And I understand that this is to, and I've understood the motion is to authorize an independent investigation, whom will then interview the parties involved and will submit a report to the board at some point in time. I understand that. So speaking to the motion, I disagree with the motion. I do not believe that there is a need to do this. I feel that the complaint is without merit and therefore is not necessary for the board to conduct an independent investigation. I think that the matter needs to return back to administration, and they are to then determine what is the true circumstance of the complaint, examining the roles, the relationships, the supervisory relationships within the administration to determine appropriate courses of action within. And this complaint against me is baseless and is only an attempt to muzzle me is old news and has been addressed in the past. And therefore, I disagree and will vote no on this motion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Are there any further discussions or questions?
I'd like to make a comment. You know, I would never put any of us board members through this kind of investigation. You know, I respect each and every one of you. I think our position as board members is to remember why we're on the board. We're on the board to take care of our kids, not to take care of hassles between him and who's complaining about him. I mean, if he has a problem, then he should hash it out with him. I mean, we're grown adults, you know. I'm not here to take care of those problems. I don't care about those problems. I care about our kids. And I stand on that from the day that I got on this board. I don't care if nobody likes how I say it, but the kids is what it's all about. You know, why are we putting ourselves in a position and then we're gonna end up mad at each other down the road, you know? I just don't get it, so I just feel that Dr. Guy has always been an advocate for all of our kids. He really is. I mean, he's strong-willed. He can drive you crazy because he asks a lot of questions. And all he's looking for is answers, you know, and I know his approach. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but he's pissed me off a few times, you know, because he's a trip, you know, but the heart that he has for, and I'm gonna say it again, is all of our kids, not just Native American, it's Spanish, Native, Navajos, Anglos. He cares about all of them, you know, and I just don't want to see us as a board choosing sides, you know? And I'm the one, I'm gonna be honest, that's always in the middle of the problems, you know? It happened before and it will happen again. So with that, I just want to give you a piece of my mind on how I feel about our kids, you know? And I think we have a strong group. I think we have a good superintendent that we can reach our goals with our kids. And, you know, I mean, we just gotta stay focused on the good things, not on all, I mean, hash it out, man. I mean, I sat with Walter in the city. I mean, he didn't always like what I did, but I stuck to what I had to do, and sometimes you gotta follow that lead, you know? And, you know, we're not here to agree or disagree, we're just here to do a job, you know?
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz, appreciate that. Is there anything further?
Well, like Ron was saying, you know, we're here to move forward, you know, I'm don't understand really all of what's going on with this. I got a little bit of insight of it, but not enough. Like Ron was saying, you know, this shouldn't have never even felt, I don't know why it even fell in our laps or how it did. I know Dr. Guy from other avenues in life and his son and wife and stuff. And he's about the kids. He's about the future of the kids, not only, you know, and the future of the teachers and the future of New Mexico, Cibola County, you know, everything we do, we're looking for the future. The only thing that I didn't understand is, you know, if this is, supposed to be confidential, I don't know why his name was even on here. Like I said, that's what makes it harder for us to deal with it, is because there's only one name being named.
If
And
I,
it should-
if
it
I
should have
may,
been-
if I may address that one thing right there, Dr. Archambault requested that his name be included.
'Cause
So that was- that
It would
was-
be easier to wrestle with it if we didn't know exactly
Right.
who it was, like I said, it's, it makes it more fair. Because now the other party, I have no idea who it is or what the complaint is, but now the other person didn't get to say their part, and what I say is guy should have never been named in this, it should have just been the process that's gonna happen, we say, let's get in the process, let's go, we don't know who it is or what it is. That's the only thing that I just have my hands in there is,
Thank you
it's
for,
supposed to be confidential, but where is it confidential?
right, well, Dr. Guy did make the request to have his name included on the agenda, so that was at Dr. Archambault's request. Is there anything further, Ms. Daly?
Superintendent and board members and the public. What I see going forward is setting precedents that any one of us can be file a complaint against. Any one of us can be in this position next board meeting, next month board meeting. And I don't think any one person here does believe that they have the authority to override policies and programs. But I fail to see the connection between what our Lieutenant Governor and Ms. Lino have indicated. There's been many board meetings where even I have questioned the credibility of data that we've been subjected to. And the lack of proficiency of our students, and what are we doing for it? As an educator and still in the classroom at this time, I see and know how my students learn. And I think that as a board member, I can relay that to staff members. I can ask for information that is pertinent to our district. And it seems like it's pulling teeth to get any kind of viable communication and viable information that's gonna make this happen. The leadership that we are under needs to recognize that fairness and discrimination is not part of our duties as a board member or even as a staff member. In my current classroom, I have Hispanics, I have Mexicans, I have natives, I have Anglo students. And not any one of those is less my responsibility to teach. As a board member, I support and I look for ways for our students to improve. That's how I measure success as an educator. And now, like I said, my fear is we go on, we set precedents for anybody to come and make claims against any one of us. My question to our legal counsel at one time was, who's next? You've opened the door. And there's no closing it once that opens. And just like Mr. Ortiz said, there's times that Dr. Archambault has pissed me off, and I go like this to him when he talks too long. But I in no way do not recognize his experience in education and the positions that he's held prior to board member as a principal. And I know he understands what needs to be done in the district and in the classroom. And so, and this is the reason I ask for clarification, because if we don't, then we set precedents and we can hear, and we will be forced to hear everything that comes before the board or before the superintendent or before some other bigwig up in Washington. And it's not an easy task to have to sit back and be lectured by finance committees at PED because they think we're doing something wrong. But as always, we always act in the best interest of our children. These are our kids. I have a grandson in this district. I taught in this district for 13 years. I have 5 grandchildren that have graduated from this district. And 5 children that have graduated from the district. And is the reason why I ran for the school board to begin with. Because I felt that there was a break and I needed to ensure that we were following the right path for our children. So having this come before the board, yes, frightens me because we opened the door. And there's no closing. Once we have opened it.
To bring the discussion back to the motion on the floor, if there is disagreement about the current motion on the floor, if someone wants to call the question, they may. And alternative processes for how the board should address complaints against individual board members can be explored.
I call for the question.
Is there any further discussion? No. It has been moved by President Lee and seconded by Walter Jaramillo to approve to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault and prepare a report with findings to the board. Ms. Garcia, roll call, please.
Dr. Guy Archambault,
No.
Miss Emily Hunt Daly,
No.
Mr. Walter Jaramillo,
No.
Mr. Ron Ortiz,
No.
Miss Francie Lee.
Aye. Motion fails. So as legal counsel indicated earlier, I would ask the board how the board would like to proceed with this complaint, because my understanding is that the board needs to make a decision how we will be proceeding.
I would like to be a mediator between him and Mr. Maldonado and
We're
straighten out the
not, we were
problem.
not allowed to say the name out loud, sir.
You asked for a, did you repeat
Well,
what you
there's
said?
I believe that there's a motion on the floor. Board member Ortiz has moved that he serve as a mediator between an employee and Dr. Archambault in order to resolve this complaint. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Now discussion.
I'd like to comment, I don't think that would be appropriate to do, because I think we need to realize that there is a process that probably is more internal within the administration than necessarily mediation between I and an employee of the district. The only person we supervise is the superintendent.
You are correct, and the superintendent does not supervise you,
Yeah,
which is
and-
why any internal processes that currently exist in district policy, such as the grievance process, are entirely inappropriate to address complaints against board members. It would be contrary to NMSA 22-5-4 subsection K, which requires the board to police itself. Returning it back to Superintendent Widener would put him in the position contrary to law of supervising you.
Okay, that, I think I can understand that. The reason why I felt that mediation between I and the employee would be inappropriate is because, again, there's that, it's not, I can't see how a discussion between I and the individual would be in the best interest of the board. I can't, if I recollect the nature of the complaints, they're such that would be difficult to fathom how that would occur. When one mediates, define mediation in your, how would you see
It's very
that?
easy for me to define mediation. I am a licensed mediator
There you
and
go.
have years of experience
Thank
doing
you.
it. A mediator is a facilitator of communication between two parties who have a dispute. And through that objective, impartial mediation, help the parties in dispute reach a resolution. And so perhaps another motion after this motion is resolved, if anybody is interested in making it, and I am not advocating for it either way, but only providing options, is that an impartial mediator, that could be an option if mediation is appealing to the board at large.
Can you clarify something? We just voted not to
Investigate.
investigate or possible action regarding next step. We just voted not to do that. So why are we still continuing to discuss it?
No.
You voted down a process.
Yes.
We are still continuing to consider alternative processes. You voted
So
down
I'm-
one process. Now there's a second process that Board Member Ortiz has suggested where he serves as mediator between the employee and Board Member Dr. Archambault. And Dr. Archambault has made his feelings about why this mediation would be inappropriate. Has started to, maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd like to
I was-
continue about why you think it would be inappropriate, and then other board members can discuss. We
Right.
can call the question, we can vote again, and if it passes, and that's what we'll do. And if it fails, then we can consider other alternative processes to address the complaint.
So the prior motion, which we all know I am the only one who voted yes to. The reason I voted yes to that is to have a third party be able to address the situation, because when the complaint was made and legal counsel was asked what to do, this was the advice from legal counsel
Okay.
to proceed, with this. Now, by you asking Dr. Archambault to have your name on there, that took away the executive session, so this is all open session. I still feel that having a third-party investigator is neither, condemning what has happened nor being in agreement with what is happening.
And
is- yes.
President Lee, please pardon my interruption, but the current motion on the floor,
Yes, ma'am, I
and
apologize.
I
I apologize.
The current motion on the
You're
floor is-
absolutely correct.
is Board Member Ortiz's motion regarding
Yes,
him
ma'am.
serving as the mediator. And we can discuss that perhaps if it would be relevant to a
Another
subsequent motion.
Motion. All right, so smart
Discussion.
thing to do is there any further discussion with Mr. Ortiz's motion?
First, I'd like to have it make it a formal motion.
I was getting ready
Well,
to go further.
I
We
believe it's been a
have,
formal motion.
because
You
it
moved.
has been moved and seconded.
And now we're having discussion.
Correct.
Board Member Dr. Archambault has weighed in. And
Not really.
and President Lee had weighed in on a previous motion, and now we're back,
Yes.
and we were like, we're not gonna do that.
Yes, correct.
But is there further discussion on the current motion on the floor, which is that Board Member Ortiz serve as mediator between the employee and Board Member Dr. Archambault to resolve the complaint?
Is there further discussion?
Yeah, let me explore this a bit, if you don't mind, Madam President. There is an objective, when an individual complains, a complaint seeks redress of some sort. And that was the original intent of the individual's complaint. So that means that if I have a different point of view on that, it means that I don't agree with the basis for the complaint, nor did I agree with the remedies for that complaint. I guess that's the part that I'm focused on, is that the plaintiff sought certain remedies. And a mediation between he and I don't think is, no one else knows what I'm talking about,
Correct.
but the public doesn't know. But the remedy sought by the complainant is charges against me, but actually seeking remedies that is not under my, it's not my, is more for the board, not me. For me to mediate, that would require an understanding of what would be the point of mediation. That means there's a disagreement. The disagreement, I guess, is the complaints. And the disagreement has to do with the remedies. So to get from the kind of remedy that that individual desired to a mediated process where we discuss a new set of remedies, that would lead us to some understanding and agreement that we've resolved whatever differences are, and are able to then bring forth an agreement as a result of the mediation. That's the part that I'm puzzled about. I don't know how to get from the original remedy sought to a mediated set of remedies between the individual and I. That's my confusion. Maybe you can help educate me.
Well, I would say that you have made your position on Board Member Ortiz's motion, that you've been able to voice your position on Board Member Ortiz's motion.
And so now I can call,
If there could be more discussion.
yes, ma'am.
Well, actually, there could be more discussion. There's no discussion here.
Okay, now I am confused. Okay, we took a vote, the motion was denied for possible action regarding next steps for handling of employee complaint against board member. I did not know, then, that's an action item. Shouldn't the action item for Mr. Ortiz's suggestion be on the agenda, and it's not, so we can just.
The action item is to determine a process by which the board is going to address the employee complaint against Dr. Archambault.
And we
One
voted.
process was to hire an outside investigator to question complainant and gather evidence, to question Dr. Archambault and to gather evidence, and to interview and collect evidence from other necessary witnesses. The board voted that process down. President Lee then solicited a motion for another process regarding next steps for handling employee complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault, whereupon board member Ortiz moved that he served as mediator between employee and Dr. Archambault to resolve the complaint. Dr. Archambault has weighed in, and so far, to my knowledge, there has been no other discussion of that motion. So currently, the motion on the floor is another alternative process. So we are still well within the bounds of this action item.
I now understand what you're saying, Madam President, also, is that the way the action item was written, it says possible action regarding next steps.
Correct.
And the motion was alternative one was to authorize an independent investigation.
Correct.
I disagreed with that because I gave my reasons why I disagreed with it. And the basis of the rationale for my disagreement with it was because I didn't want to participate in a continued, trying to have the board continue to address this issue. So it was my presumption that, and I think that's what she's saying, that I did not realize that when we voted it down, that we did not eliminate the motion, the action item that is listed here in the agenda.
A different motion would have to be made to do that.
And so you're saying that there would have to be a different motion to be made.
Yes. So currently, there is still discussion on Board Member Ortiz's motion.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion?
Regarding specifically Mr. Ortiz's motion to act as mediator between
Good.
Dr. Archambault and the employee.
I don't wanna beat that horse to death even more. But when it comes to, see, when Board Member Ortiz says he offered to mediate, does he recognize what the process of mediation would consist of so that it would be successful? You are experienced and trained professional in mediation, so that means that you know that it takes a bit of experience or knowledge, structure, and guidelines about how to do mediation.
I actually have no knowledge of Board Member Ortiz's mediation skills. He himself could be a licensed mediator and be very experienced. Or even an unlicensed mediator and be very experienced in the process of mediation, but this is part of the discussion of Board Member Ortiz's motion that the board can continue to have. I don't believe that I have any legal advice or legal citations to help you determine what you would like to do as a board under your statutory duty, where you do need to adopt rules pertaining to the administration of all powers or duties of the local school board. So what you are doing now is engaging in that, right? You are determining how you are going to respond to complaints against board members. And I think it's important to recognize Board Member Hunt Daly's observation that what we do here tonight could set precedent for future complaints against board members. So I think it's important to consider that in light of any motion that we make or that you guys make.
Okay, to continue with that, you cited our policy, so we already have a policy in place. Now, in order to make this new policy of how to handle board members, wouldn't that be a separate discussion?
What is the policy that is currently in place that you are referring to?
The one you just read,
That's not a policy, that's a state law.
okay, so the duties that we have are already in our policy.
And you do not have a policy that addresses complaints against board members.
We do not.
So we're making it up. I mean, we're trying to construct.
Well, we're trying to address what the best next steps are.
And I still think that we need to address Board Member Ortiz's motion before we move on to talking about anything else.
Okay, so are there any further discussions about Mr. Ortiz's motion?
I would like it to be a formal motion and not just a.
It is
It is a formal
motion.
motion. He has made it, he has seconded it. It's up for discussion. If you would like to call the question and have the vote, that could be another next step.
And I
Or
will
the, another
happily
next step
repeat it.
is to continue having the discussion.
Okay, but in English,
So the
Excuse me.
motion has, well, I was gonna tell you what the motion is, so you understand that it has been made.
I understand, but it's not, it's, somebody saying I would like to mediate is, to me, is not a formal motion. It's just a suggestion. And so,
So
It is a
I-
formal motion that
Right.
Board Member Ortiz serve as mediator between Board Member Dr. Archambault and the employee who filed the complaint against him in order to resolve that complaint. If there's further discussion on that motion, we can continue to have it. If not, we can call the question and vote that motion that is currently, that formal motion that is currently on the floor, up or down. And depending on whether it passes or fails, we will continue.
I'm confused.
Okay, so I'm going to state one more time. Mr. Ortiz has moved to himself act as a mediator between Dr. Guy Archambault and an employee. And it has been seconded by Mr. Jaramillo. Is there any further discussion? All right, Ms. Garcia, we shall proceed to, yes, sir.
Sorry. Board Member Ortiz,
Yes, sir.
when you say that you'd like to serve as mediator, what do you think it is that you would be wanting to do? So I know whether or not that this is what would be a reasonable thing that we would do.
We would get together, the employee and yourself and myself. We'll set a time and a date and sit down and discuss the issues that the employee has and discuss the issues that where you're at, and then come to an agreement to work together to resolve the problem. And I think it could work. I mean, sometimes communication works better than retaliating. You know, we're fighting against each other.
Are you able to seek additional guidance on how to do that?
I can.
If I may ask a question regarding this specifically. Right now, as we're discussing this, we're only getting this side of agreement to the mediation.
I was gonna bring that up.
And
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong here, don't both parties
Have to agree.
have to agree to the mediation? So even if Dr. Archambault and the board were to collectively vote to agree to this mediation, what would next steps be if the employee did not agree to this type of informal mediation?
That's a very good question. What would you guys see as the problems or the benefits of that?
Mrs. Lee, I think, as she said before, and I said before, it does set precedent. So anytime somebody brings a complaint against a board member, any one of us, this is the way we're gonna handle it, this is what goes in our board policy, and we're stuck with it, and even as a individual board member, I'm not pleased with it.
Well,
and I don't
we're not
want to-
developing policy tonight. It could just form the basis of what happens in the future, but where there's no, I mean, you have a whole regulation on how you introduce policy. It has to go through 2 readings and then it's adopted by the board. So we're not authoring policy tonight. It could just set the stage for what would be done in the future, and you could use that as an argument when, if and when you would ever develop a policy for how to address that.
Okay, Madam President, to take your point, can we extend that discussion and your question, you queried her, what would happen if the other party declined to do a mediation? I think that's what you were
That
seeking
is,
what are the implications of that? And,
I think it would be a mess. I mean, personally,
right,
because you can't compel someone to participate in a mediation by definition of the mediation. This is not, I'm not offering any kind of legal opinion on this. I'm just saying that it would have the potential if the other party was not willing to participate. So, to go back to Board Member Hunt Daly's perhaps problem with the way we had worded it, the next thing that you would do is you could move to amend the motion. You could amend the motion to say something like this. That the board moves as next steps for handling employee complaint against board member Dr. Guy Archambault to present employee with option of mediation to resolve complaint. And then it becomes you saying you're agreeable as a board to resolve the complaint this way and to present it to employee. And if employee would agree, then you would continue. And if employee would disagree, then we'd be having another meeting about the next steps.
I would like to take more time than to have to. You put in a lot of queries into our discussion and into mine. And not only I am concerned about setting precedents, but setting the atmosphere for our tribal government, our communities, our staff, that it seems to be that the board wants to handle its own complaints.
And again, pardon me for interrupting you, but we still have this motion on the floor. So to talk about anything else is out of order under Robert's Rules of Order. So before and it's not to say we can't move on and have those discussions, but we need to address the motion that's on the floor. We can either move to amend the motion, or we can continue discussion on Board Member Ortiz's motion, or we can have a vote on Mr. Ortiz's motion as it's written, which is that Board Member Ortiz will serve as mediator between Board Member Archambault, Dr. Archambault, and employee to resolve employee's complaint against Dr. Archambault. So we have those three choices.
Madam President, I'm seeking to try it.
yes, sir.
I guess I'm trying to capture the reason for the board to exist, starting at the $34,000, to bring it down to what we are needing to do. We need to address those issues that they've, that we understand, but the board has had an original complaint received.
Okay, hold, I'm gonna interrupt you here.
We really need to
Because
deal
we
with the motion
have
that's on the
to,
floor.
yeah,
I'm
we
trying-
need to address this, because if this motion isn't gonna be voted on as it is presented, then we need to amend and vote, and we can, everybody can vote how they're gonna vote, and then we can move to another motion, another
Yes.
possibility. And so I think that at this time, I would like to call for roll call, but is there further discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I would still like clarification and understanding that because of all this information that has been brought to our attention, does Mr. Ortiz really understand the role and the precedents that will be set in doing this and could lead to further objections by other complainants, and why they're not able to handle it in this way? I still go back that we did vote no to possible action regarding next steps for handling employee complaints.
That's not what you voted no on, Madam Board Member. You voted,
It says action
No.
item.
no, you voted
No.
no on the motion that was on the floor. You voted no
On the
on hiring an
investigator.
outside investigator. That is what you voted no on. The action item is still very much alive in the purpose of this meeting. So currently, and I will just say it one more time to remind us, we have Board Member Ortiz's motion on the floor. I think we should have a roll call vote on whether to call the question. If somebody would like to make that motion. I can't, and I obviously won't make that motion. But we need to either decide Board Member Ortiz's motion, we need to amend Board Member Ortiz's motion, or we need to have further discussion only on Mr. Ortiz's motion, Board Member Ortiz's motion, and then we can move on to a different motion.
So this is a first for me. Are you suggesting that I ask the board to either roll call vote, amend, or discuss further?
Yes, and you can
Okay.
systematically do this. The first way to dispose of it is have a roll call vote on whether to call the question. If it passes, you call the question and you vote on the motion.
Okay,
I would
That's how you
like
shut
to
down
amend-
discussion. I mean, after a certain point.
Madam President, I would like to amend Mr. Ortiz's motion.
thank you.
To say that he would like to volunteer as a mediator as a possible next step to the handling of employee complaint against a board member. It doesn't make it that it's going to happen, it just makes it that we look at it as a possible.
That's outside the scope of the action
Yeah.
item. I would ask that you would amend your motion so that it's tied to the action item.
That's what I did, I said I would like to amend Mr. Board Member Ortiz's motion to, or suggestion to serve as a possible mediator between the complainant and Dr. Archambault as a possible next step, maybe to be discussed at a further future board meeting.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If we're having an action item, it can't be a possible, it has to be a definitive.
But that is tied to the action item.
And it was already voted on, and it was denied. Possible action was already denied, so that stands. Okay, this motion-
No, because the motion that I made was to authorize legal counsel to engage an outside independent investigator to investigate the complaint against board member Dr. Archambault and prepare a report with findings to the board. There was nothing possible about that. That was definitive.
And it
So
failed.
that was what my motion was. So it wasn't the possibility of a next step, that was the suggested next step. Does that help clarify it all?
I'm still sticking to my amendment to Mr. Ortiz, or Board Member Ortiz's motion to take it under consideration, his suggestion to serve as a mediator, to be further discussed at a future meeting.
So are you tabling the action item? Are you moving to table the action item?
Anybody could table it? I would then move to table the discussion, to table the motion until we can further exercise our knowledge on what we're doing. Because
Okay,
obviously we
so
don't know what we're doing.
That is a separate motion. Hold on to your motion. We need to dispose of the motion that's currently on the floor, which is Board Member Ortiz's motion to serve as a mediator between employee and Board Member Dr. Archambault to resolve employee's complaint against Dr. Archambault. Would you please roll call to call the question to stop discussion? If you guys want to continue to discuss Board Member Ortiz's motion, the motion can fail. But we need to deal with the motion that's on the floor before we continue discussing other issues.
All right, so I would ask for Ms. Garcia for a roll call vote to
To call the
to
question.
call the question.
Because it's not clear if we wanna continue to discuss it or not. So this will help clarify that.
To approve Mr. Ortiz.
No,
To call the question.
Oh, to
on-
call the question,
To call the
okay.
question on Board Member Ortiz's motion. In other words, this is asking, would you like to stop discussion on Board Member Ortiz's motion?
Okay,
Mediate.
will you tell me that one more time so I can actually say it correctly? Please and thank you.
Not a problem. President Lee is asking for a roll call vote. Who is in favor of calling the question on Board Member Ortiz's motion that is currently on the floor as stated? In other words, would you like to stop discussing it and have a vote on Mr. Board Member Ortiz's motion? Pardon me, it's like I've got it stuck in my mouth. Does everybody understand?
Okay,
Are we ready to vote on Board Member Ortiz's motion, or would we like to continue talking about it?
Roll call, please.
Dr. Guy Archambo.
Yes.
Emily
so
Hunt
this
Davis.
is in favor, pardon me, this is in favor of calling
The
the
question
question. Thank you.
and stopping discussion, that's the only
And
point where we're at.
stopping discussion.
Just wanted to get to the
Thank you.
motion.
Okay, so Ms. Garcia, roll call, please.
Okay, I'm starting over. Dr. Guy Archambo.
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly.
No.
Walter Jaramillo.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
yes,
Francie Lee.
Aye, so the call
Call the question carries.
the question
So
carries.
now we're going to vote on
On-
Board Member Ortiz's motion. The motion as stated is Board Member Ortiz will serve as mediator between employee and Board Member Dr. Archambault to resolve employee's complaint against Dr. Archambault. If you would call the roll call vote, we are now voting for or against Board Member Ortiz's motion.
Dr. Guy Archambo.
Yes.
Miss Emily Hunt Daly.
No.
Walter Jaramillo.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
yes.
Francie Lee.
No. Motion does carry.
So now your next steps as a board that you've decided to do is have Board Member Ortiz serve as the mediator between the two parties to resolve the complaint. This does pose the issue of the employee being unwilling to participate in mediation. You can ask him, and if he says no, then we can have another meeting to figure out next steps. And if he says yes, then you have your conversation and hash it out. And in the future, perhaps someone would like to propose a policy and regulation.
And we're gonna discuss that now?
No,
Because that's not an action item, it's just,
and it's not on the agenda.
no, and poor people who come would not have, would be like, this is not what we signed up for. Which might not be.
All right, Mr. Widener, announcements, sir?
I have some important announcements. Coming up on Monday, the 17th, we have been invited by the New Mexico Public Education Department to participate in the government to government workshop, which is put on by the by the PED and with our tribal partners. I wanna invite any of you that would like to go. We're not gonna stay the night or anything, we're just gonna go up Monday. I did
And
sign up.
where is it, sir?
It's in Farmington. It starts at 11 o'clock on Monday and
That's next week?
that's next Monday. If anybody would like to participate, let me know and I can get you. I did register for it myself and because the Secretary of Education asked me to be there. And so I will be there. But if any of you would like to go, you're welcome to ride with me to Farmington. And that'll be Monday the 17th. Other announcements, the district will be closed. We have our next regular board meeting on June
Not July.
June 18th, yeah. Our it should be June 18th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have our next board meeting on June 18th and which is next Tuesday. We'll be here next Tuesday. Then we will have a bit of a break in our board meetings. Today, we did get the information on the Summer Leadership Conference for the NMSBA. And Lorraine will be reaching out to you on that to see if you guys want to go to that. The district will be closed for the July 4th holiday, July 4th and 5th. The NMSBA Leadership Retreat is in Taos, and like I said, Lorraine will be reaching out to you on that. And then I'm in the heat of getting everything set up for the GCCS Leadership Summit. Our theme this year is that we are shifting gears at GCCS, and Mrs. Lightfoot, who has come in and done a few trainings for us, or has done a training for us, is going to be my mentor next year, and she's gonna come in and work with leading through the Leadership Summit, and we're gonna be utilizing the Strengths Finder curriculum, and kind of that way people know where they fit on the team. And that's all of the announcements I have for now. And again, if you'd like to go to the government to government workshop, let me know.
All right, thank you, sir. And future agenda items.
I do have a few, I know Mrs. Daly was asking me about some information for reports for the next board meeting. I have not gotten that. Oh, okay, perfect.
I haven't gotten an email from you yet.
My internet's real slow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's on my list from last meeting. Also, we have to have a report for the state of our fixed assets. And so, Aaron Burke has been working in that capacity and all of our assets and our inventory. And so, we have to present that before July 1st. And so we will have a fixed asset report at our next meeting. And if there's anything else that you guys have.
I believe I asked Mr. Triplehorn for actual facilities report, not just what's coming. I can't read his brain, so I don't know what he was reading. So I asked him for that report. So we have the personnel report, facilities report. I would also like to call for a reorg at our next meeting.
You would like to call for,
The reorganization of our board. And then I'll have to get it on the agenda in order for us to vote on it.
anything further? For agenda items, board members? All right, may I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Before we do that, I would like to make a suggestion that goes to next discussion. to share some wisdom and information.
Certainly, if Board Member Ortiz so chooses, absolutely.
Thank you, that's all.
Is it okay with you?
Although you may have more experience than I do.
I will be okay.
Meetings and stuff.
All right, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
It has been moved by Ms. Hudley and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Garcia, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Guy Archambault,
Yes.
Miss Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Walter Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Ms. Francie Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. The board adjourned at 6:51 PM.